welcome. Tonight, we're going to look at the world from the conservative side with our conservative view. It is raining today in Milford, so we're short people. Some conservatives don't like coming out in the rain, but we have two who do. So let's start with introductions.
I'm Jeff Nero, town meeting member, precinct 8, also a member of the finance committee.
Mike Soares, and I'm a member of the Republican Town Committee here in Milford.
And finance committee.
And finance committee member, yes.
And town meeting.
And town meeting member.
Okay, I guess we have to start with impeachment.
Sure.
Seems like 90% of the radio, you know, I've got my routine in the morning. I turn on Fox as I leave the house. About halfway to work, I turn on CNN, figuring that somewhere between the two, somewhere in the middle, I'll get reality.
Yeah, so we've been on this impeachment inquiry, I feel like, since Donald Trump has been elected. You know, the morning of, they're already looking for ways to impeach him. You know, first it was the Russian collusion, and then there was the Mueller report with the obstruction of justice, and they have literally been looking for a reason to impeach this president since he's been elected.
Am I wrong in saying, okay, the day after Trump was elected, the Post said the impeachment movement begins?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. The guy hadn't even had a chance to open his mouth or tweet out of whatever orifice he tweets out of sometimes. It didn't matter. I'm at the point of saying, get it over with, because we're going to impeach him over Russia, right? No. We're going to impeach him over obstruction, right? No. We're going to impeach him over collusion, right? No. I'm at the point of saying, impeach him.
Yeah, stop the posturing, make public hearings, impeach him, give both attorneys, and do it. Get back to work, you know, get the impeachment, get back to work, pass the bills you need to pass.
And I think a lot of people don't understand. Clinton was impeached, but he served his term.
Right.
You know, I mean, impeachment is putting him on trial in front of the Republican-controlled Senate.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of indicting someone, right? And then there's the trial that is conducted by the Senate, and then if they decide then that there's enough evidence that there's wrongdoing, high crimes,
And misdemeanors.
Then they would remove him from office. But first, the House has to impeach.
So if they impeach, and it goes to the Senate,
it dies there.
Yeah, and my view. Let's talk back to the impeachment just for a minute. Why do you think the House is doing it? My view is that I don't think they have a strong enough candidate to put up against Donald Trump for the 2020 election.
But Jeff,
so let's throw some mud. Let's keep throwing mud against the wall, and try to
but
time
take a
the
step
ship.
back, because I want to continue on that. But let's say they were successful, and you impeach Donald Trump, and the Senate confirms it and removes him from office. So they get a very liberal, open-minded, ineffective Pence.
Right.
You know, I mean, what flips me out is, wait a minute, I did hear somebody say, then they'll impeach Pence and Pelosi. Well, the one thing you got to admit that Trump has done, proven, no question, he won the election. That's impeachable. The fact he won, you can't argue. He should be impeached. Well, Pence, the thing that amazes me is he's much more conservative. You know, when you look at some of the hot button issues like abortion, Trump may be to the right, but Pence is, I mean, how far to the right can you go?
Yeah.
You know, you start looking at the conservative view. The thing that amazes me is, in my mind, Pence makes Trump look liberal, but I don't see the guy tweeting and doing dumb things to diffuse the message.
Yeah, he stays much more private.
So if he became president, won't the conservatives come out better?
Right. Yeah, so Mike Pence is a much more Midwestern, traditional Republican, you know, more religious values, where Trump is you know, more of a fiscal conservative.
Trump's a New Yorker.
Yeah, you know, the hardball Republican, right? So it's a very different style of Republican, but like you said, Pence is not going to make those mistakes, missteps of saying things first and then
Trump is his
thinking
own
about them
worst
later.
enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it 100 times. If he'd keep his mouth shut,
He'd be okay.
yeah, but he wouldn't be Trump.
Yeah.
But what I like about him is that he does what he says.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, he does what he says and backs it.
Well, the
And
other thing is, remember the red line in Syria?
Mm-hmm.
If you cross it, I'll apologize and say, please don't do it again.
Right.
Right? I don't think that anybody would doubt that if Trump says, you do that and I will come back at you, that he'll then come back and say, I was wrong, I'm sorry.
never going to happen. Never going to happen. Yeah.
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 He's in there in a minute.
Right.
Yeah, you look at the status in Syria. I mean, people forget that whole conflict started in 2011. So it was 3 years where the war was ongoing under the Obama administration, and almost no territory had moved at that point. Fast forward to Donald Trump's presidency, beginning in 2016 and 2017, when he really took office. You really saw an acceleration of military intervention there that made a significant difference. And now ISIS is all but a shadow of its former self, you know?
And I mean, at the end, I mean, you go through and you say, Trump didn't help. It was Obama that set us up for victory. Really? I don't remember many victories during the Obama administration. I remember a lot of apologizing. I remember a lot of retreating. Now, you can argue that we shouldn't be in the Middle East at all.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that to me,
That's fair.
I have to admit that if somebody said, Jeff, would you send your kid over there? If you said no, I can't take exception with that, because I don't know that I'd want to sacrifice my daughter for somebody else's family in Syria. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I guess I'm not educated enough to understand what our connections is, other than oil. I don't know why we're there. Are we trying to establish democracy someplace? I'm not quite, I don't know foreign policy enough to understand
Right.
why we're there.
But Trump's whole stance is, if you're going to be there to win.
Right.
And that's the key point. Like, he doesn't want to be there. He inherited Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. These are not conflicts he started, but he wants to finish them, right? And you don't finish them by, doing the bare minimum of, supplying troops, local troops, right, of other countries, and saying, we'll give you some training.
No,
and
he's all in.
He's all in. Like, we are going to bomb the enemy. We're going to eliminate the enemy, and then we're going to leave.
but if it was my kids over there, what attitude would I want? I was all for Desert Storm 1. The original Bush said, get out of Kuwait. And when they wouldn't, we showed them. And we went all the way up to the line of Iraq and stopped. Okay, not my fight. And I don't want American boys and girls getting killed over there over something that I don't understand. I mean, oil, we're the biggest exporter of oil in the world now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't buy the oil thing. The fact that they were letting terrorists plot and bomb us, yeah, okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
We need military action.
And I like sending bombs, not our kids. And I know that's a horrible, people will say, well, you think our kids are worth more than theirs? You know something? And my kids, yeah. Yeah. And I went to Iraq when there was the Iraq-Iran war. And I've got a pretty strong stomach, but I was never so sick in my life as when I saw the war footage of the Iranian kids running through the minefields to clear a path. I mean, they showed the kids holding up the little blue plastic keys to heaven, and they'd run them down the middle of the minefields. Clear it? Yeah, clear out the mines. Kids are running around like this.
That's so sad.
And I just sat there and I said, I don't know what kind of animal would do that. So when you see stuff like that, like you say, I don't have enough details to have an informed opinion, but
Yeah, certainly different values than us. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I mean, even look at with the head of ISIS that just got killed. Takes 3 kids into the tunnel with him and blows the vest. I can't get my head around that.
see, that was the Washington Post guy of an elderly religious scholar.
Yeah. The elderly, so he was cutting people's heads off, what, for religion?
I mean, you got an animal that went and beheaded people. And like you say, to me, when Trump called him a sniveling coward, he didn't go far enough. Anybody who would take 3 kids in, at least if you're going to pull the pin, let the kids go out.
Yeah.
I mean, the SEAL team wouldn't shoot the little kids.
Right.
He could have sent them out, get around the corner of the tunnel, and then pull the pin.
Well, and that's the problem, right? That's the culture that we're fighting. And I'm not trying to say that the entire countries over there are of that culture, but I'm saying that is the enemy's culture, right? That terroristic, they have no value for human life, whether it be, adults, men, women, children. They have no value for life.
But
they have that ideology
the
that.
problem I have is I don't equate that with Islam.
No.
When I think of Timothy McVeigh, he blew up how many people in Oklahoma City?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a Christian. Well, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
And I don't relate at all with a extremist, sick animal like him. So when I look at this 1% of the Muslim population that's that way, or less, I don't know.
Extremists, yeah.
The extremists, I really don't care if you're Buddhist, Catholic, Christian, Muslim,
They all have that
Jewish.
1%.
If you're killing kids, pulling the pin is not something I'm going to feel bad about. Pulling the pin when kids are around, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think the whole world would agree with that.
So we take a step back. Impeachment. I hate to say it, but it's like, enough? Just do it?
Right. Stop the posturing, just do it.
Because I don't hear anything happening. The trade agreements, we got a budget coming up. Okay, it is right at the time when we should be hearing the warring clans of spend more on this, don't spend on that. Because that's healthy.
Right. And we're in the middle, we're in full swing of the next election cycle, right? The presidential debates have started between the Democratic primaries, and you would think the news cycle would be focused on what differentiates one Democrat to another, right? What differentiates Joe Biden to Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders. Instead, this whole impeachment inquiry just sucks the whole air out of the room and takes over the whole story. So we haven't been hearing about what Joe Biden's plans are or Elizabeth Warren's plans are or even Yang's plan for a minimum income, basic income for all, regardless of whether you work or not.
How can you not love the
Money
plans?
for all?
I don't have to work, I get money. I'm not going to have to pay for college. If I paid for college, I'm going to have it forgiven, if I read right. I was like, do you love your mother? Of course, world peace. It's like world peace.
Yep.
How can you not want world peace?
Free health care for all?
Free health care, we'll talk about that. But, I mean, free everything.
Right.
But then there's
It's a utopia.
Then there's that woman that I remember from that island, Margaret Thatcher, who said that socialism was the best form of government until you run out of other people's money.
That's what she said. It's
You
true.
know, and that memory haunts me, saying, why wouldn't I want free everything? If I don't want to work, why wouldn't I want money given to me? Now, it's only $1,000 or something a month, but...
Right. But you multiply that by 160 million adults in the United States, and that quickly adds up. So.
Yeah, but fundamentally, here's the problem I have. If you don't want to work, why should I pay for you?
Right.
I don't understand.
Contribute.
I have no doubt that when my grandfather came over from Portugal, hit Ellis Island, if they had said, do you want to work? Not really. You want to eat? Yes, then work. Okay. If he'd had a choice, You know, and I think a lot of people would rather do stuff that are fun than work.
Sure.
You know?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, it seems like the culture of not even the millennials, but the next generation is that they feel that the government is there to support you, rather than, you know, the government is there to make it a even playing field for everybody. Instead, they think it's there to be almost your mother and father, right? That you should take care of me, you should, you know, clothe me, you should give me shelter, you should give me an education, health care, and, you know, that way I can pursue whatever it is that my heart desires, whether it's economically feasible or not.
I was reading, you mentioned Margaret Thatcher. I think I was reading the article about Great Britain saying that when, just before they went to the capitalist society, inflation was like 200%. And the next year it dropped to 20 once they adopted the capitalism. So it's proven.
But
it's proven time and time again that it's just,
I get a
until you run
kick
out
out
of people's money.
You know, it's like when people talk about Milford. Oh, Milford's terrible. All these things are bad about Milford. Okay, I'll agree. Milford is horrible. Pick one town around us you'd rather be in. Just pick one that has a better financial, better this, better. Oh, so maybe Milford's not so horrible. You know, so you turn around and say, okay, pick a socialist country, a true socialist country that you consider a success.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned the true socialist country, right? Because everyone points to
Denmark,
the Scandinavian countries, you know, the Norways, the Denmark, the Swedens.
Not Canada.
But they're so
close.
They're capitalistic countries. They don't even have a minimum wage. A lot of people don't even recognize that. And, you know, yes, they have a lot of social safety nets, but it's a capitalist country. They, you know, everyone like keeps what they earn, or, you know, you have to earn your keep essentially there. So it's not a true socialist country.
That's why I say true.
Like Venezuela.
Venezuela.
That's a true socialist country.
Now, here's a country, let me think. Do they have any natural resources?
Yeah, huge.
Let's see. Aren't they sitting on the biggest oil repository in the world? Okay. Weren't they giving out money by the truckload to every country in South America that would side with them against America?
Yeah.
And now?
Yeah, now all the residents are starving.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're eating their pets because they have the. I mean, you could buy a gallon of gas for less than you could buy, you know, a gallon of water, a bottle of water. You know, it's sad really when you think about how expensive basic goods are. But yeah, they have all of this natural resources that they could be using, but because of their government structure, it doesn't pay them.
Yeah, I mean, they are sitting on the largest repository of oil in the world. They dwarf Saudi.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet people can't eat. So why would I get excited about that system?
Right.
You know, when we used to go to the Soviet Union, you know, back when, I was there once a month, and it was always funny. I'll never forget one time, we had an office on Leninsky Prospect, and we'd drive from the hotel past this group of people that were always there, just standing. I finally asked the driver, when I could speak enough Russian, what are they doing? And he explained to me, it took him 3 times for me to understand, but they're working. Their factory burnt down. I said, but then what are they doing? They still have to show up to work. Well, the fact that there's no factory there anymore, their job is to be there.
Right.
To get paid.
And to get paid.
Interesting.
And then, you know, you talk to people and they say, well, the government pretends to pay us, we pretend to work. And that's why the whole system just was not viable.
Right. Well, and that's what it is, right? When there's no incentive to work, the only incentive is not to work, right?
If you think about old computers, they sucked up a lot more electricity, but their output was very low compared to today.
Sure.
They never complained. That was a perfect Marxist philosophy. from those according to their ability to those according to their needs. The old computer needed more electricity and gave less work. That works fine when you're talking about machines. Not so much for people.
Right.
You know, because why should I work hard if you're getting the same as I am and you're doing nothing? So now you turn around and say, okay, we talked about some of the plans. Talk to me about some of these Democratic plans, because they sound really great to me. Free college?
Yeah, it's a great plan. Great
Free
plan.
medical?
Yeah, what was the estimated cost of that Elizabeth Warren plan?
30 to 40 trillion over 10 years.
Yeah.
And the spending for her proposed plan so far is double double spend than what we're spending now per year. You know, we're talking about the national debt. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about how you're going to correct that. How you're going to help that.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to fund these social programs, which is great. Like you said, sounds great. How's it get paid for?
Well, her idea is that you just tax the wealthy that don't need the money.
Sure. Right. And then what happens? But those are the people who have the means to live somewhere else, right? So if you tax the 1% to 90%, what's to stop them from moving to another country that is going to be a lot more
Lenient?
or, you know, incentivize them to, hey, bring your $1 billion that you have to the small island of, the Bahamas, right?
But wait a minute, Mike, how about the small country of the United States of America? If you want to get a visa, a green card, my understanding is if you invest $5 million in a business,
You get a card.
you get a green card. That was the big stink about the ski resorts up in, I don't know if it was New Hampshire or Vermont, that they had very wealthy Asians who wanted a safeguard if something happened in their country. We're investing $5 million.
Okay.
Now they get a green card. We're already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $5 million. Can you imagine if you had $1 billion or $2 billion to protect?
Right.
And there's a lot. And so you said 5 million. There's a lot of countries you pay for residency.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Panama is like 200,000. It's not a lot of money.
No.
You know, it's not a lot of money compared to, like you said, to your point about 5 million for.
And I mean, $5 million to most people is unachievable, is huge, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that I think would be surprised to find out you can buy American residents.
What drives me nuts is especially Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who specifically are going after Wall Street investors, right? Well, who are the Wall Street investors? Who are the shareholders? Those are retirees. That's your teachers' pension funds, right? Those are all your retirement funds, people who have amassed wealth over their lifetimes, who are ready to go into their golden years, and you're saying, oh, you haven't paid enough, right? You haven't paid enough throughout your lifetime. It's time for you to pay more, because they believe that if they just tax Wall Street, that's enough to pay for education.
The plan's not going to go into those people.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, right.
Wasn't that AMT? We're putting it in only for the really wealthy people. It's never going to touch the middle class. Then what, 7 years later? Surprise!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But see, the thing that amazes me is how many people look at capital gains and the stock market is only for the uber wealthy.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, if you put in $1 billion into stocks, you're going to make a lot more money than my $10, $20 I'm putting in.
Right.
Sure.
But when I first started, working in the 70s at Waters, they had already done away with the idea of a pension. We were on 401, we were on, here's your money, you invest it, you take care of it.
Right.
Right? Okay, so like you say, if I'm a union, my father worked at General Motors his whole life. Where did his pension come from? The union. Where did the union, they didn't keep it with Jimmy Hoffa buried somewhere.
They invested into Wall Street.
They invested it into the stock market or the bond market.
That's how they're going to fund it. Right.
So, when I hear that well, first of all, I get a kick out of Obama set this up. It was the Obama policies that put us in the position to grow at 4% and do well. I mean, the first few years, all I heard was bad Bush, bad Bush, bad Bush. Then the last years, am I wrong when I kind of remember him saying we'll never get above 2%? That's the new reality.
Yeah. What magic wand do you have to get above?
That was it.
Yeah, above 4%, and sure enough, there was one quarter of 4.1% of GDP growth. It was a great quarter, you know.
But when Trump came in, all of a sudden we're at 3%, growing, and now people are saying that was Obama.
Right.
He set the stage.
Well, then why didn't he set it for himself?
Yeah,
you know, okay, the
that's a good
first few
question.
years, I won't even argue that could have been bad Bush. Everything was terrible. But 6 years later, still working on it.
Right.
You know, and that was what scared me when, you know, Hillary came and said, I'm going to continue his policies. And I'm sort of shaking my head saying, okay, so I'm going to have miserable returns on my investment for the next 8 years.
But honestly, I feel like to try to give credit to the economy to any president it's like trying to factor in the weather, right? There's no one factor that says, you know, if you just increase temperature 2 degrees, it's going to rain tomorrow, right? There's so many other variables involved. I think it's disingenuous to give credit to the economy.
To give total credit.
To give total credit. There's a lot of things that's going on, you know. So we're coming out of the recession. We passed a tax relief program within the first year of Trump being in office. The Republican House and Senate gave us a tax relief program. We're still benefiting from them. People have more money to spend. It's in your check every week, every pay period, versus where Obama tried to do the lump sum, right, tax
yeah, but
credit.
Michael, the rich got more than me.
Right. Well, they put in more than you.
I don't know that I like that. I want to get as much as them.
Yeah, it's a refund.
Yeah, but that gets back to what we were talking about before when we had under the Obama administration the tax refund. I had 5 people in my house. Me, not eligible. My wife, not eligible. My oldest daughter, not eligible. Now, we've been paying taxes. My youngest daughter's paying taxes. Not eligible. My sainted mother, who hadn't paid taxes in 5 years, she got a refund.
Yeah.
Yeah, a refund.
A refund.
Yeah.
That hadn't paid.
She never paid in. So how do you get a refund on something you never paid in?
I don't know.
But that was the whole idea. You know, I remember when we were living in France and the socialists took over, Mitterrand and one of the things that hit me that was amazing is they put through a special payment to the unemployed because it wasn't fair that the unemployed couldn't go on vacation. So they were giving them enough money so they could go to the south of France and have a proper vacation.
Well, I had to support the economy in southern France, right?
Well, they did to support the economy. The first year I was there, they issued the 13th month payment. I was not smart enough to understand where does the 13th. Now these people getting 5-6 weeks off plus 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, it was like 10 plus weeks off a year, and now they're getting a 13th month. Well, you don't work it; you just get paid twice as in December, because that was going to stimulate the economy. And that first year it did. But then all of a sudden, nobody wanted to expand in France because of the cost.
Right. Well, and that's the problem, right? You're stealing money from the economy to try to give a boost to the economy that you just stole from. Just don't steal it in the first place and add an admin fee to give it a stimulus. I mean, I don't know.
So now you turn around and say, can you really say we shouldn't have universal care for all? Isn't that a great concept? And in a way, don't we have it now?
Well, yeah, I like to remind people that you go to any emergency room in need, they're not going to deny you care, right? They're not going to deny you emergency
See,
care.
I think we have they're talking about universal care, not universal medical accessibility.
Okay.
Because if you talk to Jeff Hopkins, who runs our emergency room, he'll tell you, he has no clue, once you walk through that admission area,
If you have insurance.
if you're wealthy, poor, he
You're
gives
sick.
you,
You're sick.
Yeah.
you know,
That's all he sees.
he's got that little Hippocratic oath buzzing in his head that says, do no harm and take care of everybody. It doesn't say, take care of them a little better if you like them or if they're wealthy. So people get care. It's not like some of these third world countries where there is no hospital. But I think the biggest thing is, by the time some of these people go to the hospital, even people with insurance, I mean, you think about, why do we have urgent care centers? Because the emergency rooms, to go see Jeff in the emergency room cost me
$150, yeah.
$250 on mine.
Yeah.
You know, before anything, it's a minimum $250 deductible. I can go to the urgent care for the $25. That's my copay. So from that end, I think even some of the people who have insurance, you know, let's face it, for a lot of people, $250 is not a trivial expenditure.
No,
It's expensive.
You know, it's like, okay, Donna, can I go to the hospital or can we eat tonight?
Yeah.
You know,
You really need to go.
I really, do you mind giving up a couple meals this week?
Yeah. And I think you'll find a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that says that our system probably could be improved, right? We could probably have a system where we have basic access and basic insurance for all, but without, you know, I always say, just give me the option to purchase catastrophic insurance. I don't need a subsidy to go see my primary care. All I want is, you know, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to be able to make sure that all my surgeries, you know, my 6 months in the hospital, the $300,000 hospital bill gets covered. I just want the catastrophic stuff.
I mean, I just went through the nuisance, you know, with my heart, and that was a quadruple bypass, and I saw the bill, and it was $250,000. You know, you're sitting there saying it's $100,000 a day. Can you imagine?
No.
You know,
Pay
now
for it.
I'm glad they took care of it.
Right.
I'm glad that I went to the Milford Medical Center, and within an hour and a half, I was at the Brigham, and they were sticking a catheter in my body to figure out what was going wrong. And that's, I can't get it out of my head that when Sharon and I lived in France, we loved socialized medicine. It was the best thing you could have done for us because we were on Blue Cross. So when her girlfriends needed something, they'd be scheduled a month or two out. I mean, it's not like they're having a heart attack.
Right.
Right.
But you had to wait.
Sharon got called the next day because we had
Yeah,
Blue Cross. So, you know, for us,
And scheduled surgery, not to interrupt you, scheduled surgery, even longer wait if it's not,
if
or
it's not
or
critical,
denied it,
Or denied.
right?
But see, for us, when somebody says, well, how was socialized medicine? Wonderful, as long as I didn't have to participate.
Right.
You know, so I don't understand. It's like world peace in many cases. You know, I think you're right. We want to increase access to care so that when a child is getting a cold, when they're starting to get sick, they have a way of addressing it, not waiting till they have pneumonia.
Right.
Right.
You know, how can you argue against free college?
It's not free. You're just asking someone else to pay for it, and that's ultimately the problem, right? So we're talking about two different things when we're talking about education. We're talking about loan forgiveness, which is taking the debt of the people who borrowed that money and making people who didn't borrow that money pay for it, like you and I. And then you have people who haven't yet gone to college and saying you should go to college for free.
But wait a minute, my loan doesn't get, the fact I didn't take a loan and paid, I don't get money back?
No, exactly. So
Yeah.
for those who didn't go to college, our plumbers, our carpenters, our HVAC technicians, they're still going to have to pay for other people's college education.
Well, even the people like me who paid $5,000 a month to send my daughter through Holy Cross. You mean if I had taken a loan, I could have not paid it back?
Yeah.
They didn't tell me that.
Or all the people that already did take a loan and pay it back, now they have to pay again.
Yeah.
It's a great concept, and I just don't see how it gets funded. You know, he said free college, great, but I don't see how it gets
But I
funded.
think Michael's right. It's not
not free.
alternate funding college.
Well, yeah, it's alternate funding. I like that term. But, you know, we talk about the federal, Jeff mentioned earlier, you know, we're already spending more money than we're taking in. So we're currently spending about $4.2 trillion a year. We're bringing in about $3.8 trillion. So there's about a $500 billion of deficit already. Now you want to add free education, so that's going to be another $1 trillion a year. Free healthcare, that's another $3 trillion a year. Where does this come from? Well, if our current average income tax for the average person is 25-30%, to then get to those spending levels to actually pay for it, that means you're taxing the people, median income people at 60%. That's just to raise enough revenue.
It's crippling. It's crippling. And I don't understand the, I know it's all with macroeconomics, but I know adding that $4 trillion to the debt pushes the recession. You know,
Well,
because
I mean,
the interest on that money is immense.
I have to admit, I don't have a lot of friends who have too much money and not enough to spend it on. You know, we have people we're really proud of, happy Milfordians. We don't see people starving. You know, there are people who are struggling, but if you take away money in taxes to pay for something else, I'm not going to spend as much this weekend, am I?
Right.
You know, when you think about it, I want to go out to dinner. You know, it's like you go into the emergency room. Hey, Donna, looks like can't eat this week either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You turn around and say, if they take that much more money out of my pocket. I mean, like just like we talked about family leave. What a fantastic concept, right? That you get 12 weeks and, you know, if it's paternity, you get, for once, the dads get some time off.
Yeah.
But I don't know if a lot of people have noticed that their paycheck went down 1.5%.
Right.
To pay
Last
for
month.
it.
I noticed.
Yeah.
I noticed because I'm salary, and so, you know, I'm used to getting an exact amount every single pay period, and so
changed.
And something changed, right? So it's a little bit
Well,
less.
I'm used to getting my $100 in my paycheck every other week, and all of a sudden it's 98.5.
Yeah.
Okay, that $1.50.
Yeah, where'd it go?
Yeah.
Can I spend it?
Right.
I think I already did.
So now instead of having lunch at, you know, the Central Tavern, you're gonna just brown bag it, right?
Right.
So you got to make up that difference. Unlike the government, you can't just spend more than what you have. So you have to make up the difference by cutting your spending, and cutting spending is how we enter recessions.
Well, I mean, okay, so you don't go down for lunch. Well, that means that's, you know, $5 or $10 less that they take in for revenue.
Yeah.
That means they buy $3
That
or
much
$4
less
less food. And down we go.
Less energy, less everything,
Yeah.
less transportation to bring the food.
So, you know, it does have the ripple effect. I don't care what anybody says, that if you take money out of the economy
Yeah.
and you don't put it somewhere that generates value or wealth, you're going to feel it.
Yeah, you're going to take 1% out of the economy.
Yes, out of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And since Mass is only one doing it, you wonder why people are saying, you know, we were started, everybody, biotech-wise, Mecca. You know, Mecca was Cambridge. Now, with rents at 100, I just heard that some building is 125 a square. Holy moly.
For rent, yeah.
For rent. That is frightening. I remember when we had to develop a new lab when I was at Cambridge Biomed. They brought us down to Kendall Square, to the Mecca, you know, all hail. It would have cost me $500,000 more in rent, because I would have gone from 16 back then to $78 a square foot.
Triple net.
Triple net. Oh, yes, I love that shot. I don't understand triple net. Well, welcome to my world of biotech where, do you know any biotech labs that aren't triple net? But, you know, you sit there and say, why would I do that? So I'm 10 miles out. Now companies are moving to Worcester.
Yeah.
One keeps the traffic down because you don't have to drive. I mean, my darling bride drives an hour and a half to 2 hours each way to get to Charlestown every day.
It's no good way.
And that's a commute that's getting worse by the day. But, I mean, it's...
Now, is it all going to get fixed by reducing the tolls?
The tolls.
Congestion pricing?
Yeah.
I mean,
Congestion pricing.
you know about this congestion pricing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, surge pricing. So, you know, there is a proposal running around the State House right now to modify the toll charged on the Mass Pike based on the time that you use it. So, you know, if you're commuting during the peak hours, you know, the 7 to 9 in the morning, the 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 in the evening,
Pay more money.
you pay more money. Now, whether or not that means the person that travels off those peak hours pays less,
let me understand.
that's still to be seen.
I used to leave the house at 5 a.m. to drive to Brighton. So do I get a discount?
That's a good question. I have yet to see the state give away money, give back tax money that is collected, so I'm not counting on it.
Now, the other thing you said that I hope I misunderstood, you said they want to change the pricing. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to lower prices for people who help. I don't think so, but on the Mass Pike. Now, that's infuriated me forever because most of the revenue
East-West?
is East-West. It's the Metro West area. Mm-hmm. Yet it goes into North-South. Are they also saying they're going to increase the price of driving on 93 or...
There's no tolls currently, so they would have to spend a lot of money of your tax dollars to invest in tolls on 95 and 495. So I know that has been a proposal in the past. Our state rep, Brian Murray, has proposed that in the past with adding tolls. And
yeah, but come on, Brian Murray's from Metro West.
Right.
Okay, he knows he's getting fleeced.
Right.
He's smart enough to sit there and say, it's all gazauda. There's no gazinta coming in from that money. But 93, they couldn't put up one. I mean, you say a lot of money. Put up one of those U-shaped things with like on the Mass Pike.
Yeah.
Yeah, electronic.
The electronic toll collecting and collect from people going north-south.
Well, you know, I always ask the question, why can't you just spend less, right? I mean, you look at Massachusetts and we're the second highest cost per mile of any other state. The only state that beats us is corrupt Rhode Island. And, you know...
Yeah, and they have 3 miles of highway, so, I mean...
Right, exactly. So, I mean, and they're looking at adding tolls now, Rhode Island is. So, you know, why can't... And you can't say it's the weather, because Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, they all have highways, they all have worse weather than us. Michigan, Pennsylvania...
Yeah, but we all have the same issues with our roads and the heaving. And
so why can't we be more in line with the public works cost? You know, we're 7 times the average. So why can't we spend less on our public infrastructure and the cost of maintaining the roads? Not do less maintenance, but why is the cost so high, 7 times the average?
Well, do you remember the ticket toll takers?
Yeah.
When they found out the mean salary, now this was many years ago.
$65,000 a year.
Yeah, and some of them were making 80-some thousand a year. And I was amazed when they said, how do you justify that? And the administration said, well, that's what we have to pay because of comps. And I'm trying to think, what's a comparable position to 50 cents, please? And I said, the guys who say, do you want fries with that order? That seems comparable. They weren't making, I don't think, they make 58, 65, or 80,000 a year. You know, so when you start putting in that kind of cost burden, no wonder you can't make money.
Yeah. I want to see if congestion pricing eases the traffic. That's short term. I want to know the long term solution. You lived in France. What does France have that we don't have? Rails everywhere, right? You can get from anywhere in Europe. It's just France, but France, you were there. It's great. You can get anywhere. right? I was just in France. I went from Lyon to Paris. Took me 2 hours on the train.
On
put
the
me
SNCF.
put me right in the airport. 2 hours. It was $18.
Well, I mean, you think about it, we do not have public transportation outside of the city.
Right. So what's the long-term fix?
You know,
I think technology will fix that. I think we'll move to an age where instead of owning a vehicle, we'll rent them as we need them. The Ubers, the automated self-driving Ubers will be, you need to drive to work, $7, right? And that would be a flat cost, not a cost to you, but then there's 3 times more of that subsidy from the government, right? We look at any public transportation is highly subsidized by the government. And I think technology is going to pave the way for the next generation of public transport.
but I think Jeff's got a point in that, okay, the first year and a half I lived in Paris, I never had a car. As silly as it sounds, I never owned a car because every other block there was a subway stop. And if I want to go to Versailles, I got on the blue train. I want to go to Saint-Germain, where I lived, 30 miles outside of Paris, I got on the red SNCF, or the RER. It was the RER. It was so easy to not deal with. Now, it probably took me just as long to take a train in where we were in Saint-Germain to the other side of Paris. But I sat there and read my newspaper, relaxed. Mm-hmm. Even the last 2 years where we had a car, I never would take the car into Paris unless I had to.
What would the congestion be without it?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe Boston traffic.
They would? No, it would.
Well, I'm amazed because when we always thought about traffic jams and horrors of traffic, L.A.,
Yeah.
now they're saying Boston's worse than L.A.
Some days it feels that way because there's no other route around it, really. You look at your Waze app and it's just red lines everywhere when you leave Boston.
Well, I mean, even 495. I mean, do you remember when they built 495 and we were all saying, what are they doing? Why will we need another 128? And they, you drive and you'd see a car now and again. There'd be a car here, a car there. Can you imagine what this area would be without 495 now?
No.
But it's almost impossible to replicate the Moscow system of 7 ring roads. They've got 7 128s getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, can you imagine the disruption into the towns if you tried building another 495?
The 695? Hey, why not, right? More highways, the better. Easier commute. Question is always how you pay for it. Does it actually...
Well, I don't even think it's the money it would cost. I mean, you'd have to disrupt so many houses.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, no longer is it just, back when 495 was coming in, I remember the lady with the shotgun in the chicken coop that didn't want to give up her chicken coop for the stupid highway that nobody's ever going to need. I mean, can you imagine today trying to destroy how many homes to build a new highway?
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, and a place where we already have housing crisis, really. Right? There's not enough housing stock.
Yeah. I mean, you look at housing prices and forget housing prices. Look at rents. I mean, it seems like every other
tied
day.
together, though, right?
But they're the same thing.
Right,
But there's seems to be every other day there's a post like looking for an apartment under 2,000, and it's like I couldn't even imagine renting an apartment for 2,000 when my mortgage is much less than that.
My mortgage was $1,300. My daughter's apartment is $2,700.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
in the North End, but
yeah.
you sit there and say, if you're graduating now, I worry about the kids because if your parents couldn't or didn't, whatever the reason, pay for your education, I sit there and say my daughter would be walking out of Holy Cross owing $250,000. I mean, when you graduated, did you have more than $32.80 in your pocket?
No.
But you had to buy a car. You got married, you had to buy 2 cars. You had to buy a house. Well, if you already had a $1,500 student loan on your back, where does it go?
Yeah. Well, and that has
Yeah,
to do.
and how much do you make at a job out of college?
No,
To
but
pay
even
for
if,
that. No, but
even if you got a great job out of college and you made 50, 60 grand a year, sounds like a good pay. Not the 18,000 I made when I graduated, but you're making 50, 60 grand a year. I don't think any of us would turn our noses at it. Okay, so that means net you're going to bring home 3 grand, maybe, a month, somewhere there. If the first $1,300, $1,400 goes up to student loans, now you got $2,000 a month.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the cost of a college education relative to the median income, right? So it used to be, what, 30, 40, 50% of a median income. So a lot of people would just work a year, maybe 2 years, save enough money, and then go to college, right? Well, now it's 3, 4, 5 times the annual median income.
yeah,
You can't save for that. You have to borrow.
well, that's why free college is a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, but why is it so expensive in the first
I
place?
know.
Because of all
Well,
the easy money from the government
We've
to give
had
students
an
loans.
issue for a long time. I remember getting a letter from the president of Holy Cross, Emily's sophomore year. And I love Father McFarland. He was a nice man. But I went to him and I said, I thought you were educated at Holy Cross as a Jesuit. He goes, I said, and they didn't teach you English? He goes, what do you mean? I said, the letter you sent me. You had 2 paragraphs of all the cost cutting, the efficiency, everything you're doing great.
But you need more
And
money.
then you said, it's only going to raise the tuition and all 5%. I said, Father, that's twice inflation. How can you be proud of 2 times inflation? And the word only and 60,000. Didn't anybody ever teach you that to a poor boy from Milford? Those words don't come together in the same sentence.
Nope, yeah, your mic fell.
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, it's a lot of money. It certainly doesn't go together. You know, $60,000 a year. I mean,
It straps everyone.
I'm-
How do you do that? How do you do that? Like Al said, how do you get an apartment? How do you rent? How do you buy a car? How do you live?
yeah.
And
So
with that nut, that's
you look at the median income in Massachusetts is roughly 60,000, right? So, and that's median household income. Excuse me, not median income for an individual. Median
household income.
So, you know, so most households have 2 working people.
You don't have a choice.
Well, you don't. We really don't, because you couldn't afford to live otherwise. But it's so much money, and that's why, you know, I joke with my wife that, you know, our kids, we have 2 kids, and it's like, well, do you want to give them a house when they turn 18, or do you want to give them a college education? We could probably afford one or the other, not both.
But you know, you think about it. Normally, in the old days, you worked, I'm 62, I'd be getting ready to retire, right? Well, most people, I hate to say it, at my age, now are getting ready to start again. Because if they've taken a couple of $100,000 and put it towards their kids' education, their retirement fund isn't really fat and happy anymore.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
that's a good reduction.
I was totally amazed, and God bless my mom and dad, typical Portuguese. They worked like animals for the family. I mean, my mom was making $12,000 a year. My father was making almost 20, and yet they came up with $6,000 a year to pay for Holy Cross, because they had saved it over the years. And you know, that's $25,000 to my family. That was a ton of money back then. But it wasn't $250,000.
Right.
Right, and they didn't spend.
Yeah.
Right.
But even if you were the savers, coming up with $125,000 for a state school or $250,000 for a private school, I don't know that doesn't mean you. A lot of my friends took out second mortgages. But at 50 years old, you can't take a 30-year mortgage out.
Right.
And I don't know what you started with, but my first mortgage was fixed 30 years.
Right.
Well, at 50, 60 years old, I don't know that the banks would consider me a good bet to pay it back.
Good credit. Yeah. It's a lot of money, and it amazes me every time. Every time I hear, I have a lot of younger cousins coming up, and I always try to steer them into, trades, right? Because you look at plumbers, you look at electricians, they're all making, 70, 80, 90, 100 grand a year.
Do we allow those anymore?
Yeah, we do, and we pay them a lot of money.
How?
Because nobody knows how to do anything anymore.
No,
so you got a leaky faucet in your bathroom. Who do you call?
Well, Mike, in the old days when you were coming to high school, you made a decision. If you wanted to go to college, you went to Milford High. If, like my father, you put him in organic chemistry class, he would not do well. Give that man a tool. He was an artist. He would go to BVT.
Sure.
And he'd learn to be a plumber, a mechanic, a carpenter, a tradesman.
Right.
Well, now you got to be the top 10% academically, or you're not getting into BVT.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time for this discussion.
Well, we'll have to take that up next time, but think about it.
That's true. That's exactly
If I
right.
want to be a plumber, I'm a smart kid, hard worker, all that good stuff, but I'm not an academician. I'm not going to score real high in the academics. So a tradesman is probably a perfect role for me.
Right. It's very competitive these
Where do
these
I
days.
go to learn?
Yeah, there's not enough trade.
Where do you go to learn to trade?
That's what I'm saying. Do we allow it?
Yeah, there's not enough trade schools, for sure.
You know,
No.
little Jeff wants to be a plumber. Is he top 10% of his class?
Yeah.
Well, if he is, he may not limit himself to one choice. He may have two choices, and you lose half the kids that'll go do something else.
Right.
I mean, it drives me crazy when I think of the kids, like my dad, who could be artists with tools. And they make good money now.
That's their calling. They have the skill.
You know, one of the things we've been pushing, a number of us, is that the high school needs to beef up their bio-operator program, because the labs they have, we came close this year, we'll go again next year, really need to be spruced up to give our kids experience. Because you can come out of high school and be a bio-operator, make 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
High school diploma.
High school diploma. 50 grand. That's something that I'd be proud of.
No debt.
Yeah, think about that. No debt at all.
And you don't lose the opportunity cost of working for 4 years, because that's if you're working 4 years instead of going to college for a year, you're saving $200,000
$500,000 swing.
That's a $500,000 swing. That was my point. It's not just the $200,000 you saved by not going to college; it's the $200,000 you made.
We'll pick up on this topic in our next show. Thanks for coming on a rainy night.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And as always, don't care if you're conservative, liberal. I care that you get knowledge, you become an informed voter, and you go out and vote. I mean, it's really horrible to say when we have our elections and we get 12% turnout. Whether I agree with you or totally disagree with your view, I want you to contribute to make Milford better. So please consider voting. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, after that diatribe, maybe 5, thank you for joining. May God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just